You might be doing everything right, and still remain stuck in the same place. You read, search, meditate, dream, yet feel something invisible pulling you back, as if there were a rope tied to your feet, a silent force, always dragging you to the starting point. But what if I told you? It's not the world sabotaging you, not people, not a lack of time, it's your body. Yes, your own body may be addicted to suffering, and more than that, it may be replaying old emotions without your permission. The most dangerous part of an invisible loop is that it's invisible. It disguises itself as personality, hides inside your habits, inside the repeated thoughts you believe are you, but they aren't. In this video, you'll uncover the hidden architecture behind stagnation. You'll understand how your body became your mind, and how, quietly, it's been sabotaging your plans, your dreams, and your future. You'll also learn how to access the exact point where the loop can be broken, and how to use your energetic field to rehearse every day the new reality you want to live. It doesn't matter how long you've felt stuck, or how many times you've tried and failed. From today on, you'll stop resisting the old and start rehearsing the new, because you weren't born to repeat pain. You came to remember that you have the power to reprogram every part of your existence from the inside out. Now tell me, do you want to discover the hidden code that keeps you stuck and how to break it once and for all? Then take a deep breath and come with me. The first factor, the hidden program. Have you noticed how often your body acts before you even think, as if it had a life of its own? You decide to wake up early, but the bed holds you like a magnet. You promise to eat healthy, but your hand already grabbed the chocolate. The uncomfortable truth is this: over time, the body became the mind. It remembers everything, even what you wanted to forget. It's like trying to run new software on an old operating system. You install fresh intentions, but the OS still carries the emotional bugs of childhood, the criticism you heard at 8, the unresolved fear. The worst part? It happens without you noticing. The body presses the keys, and the mind obeys, thinking it's in control. But who's really conducting the orchestra? Imagine a pianist who's played the same melody for years. Even without sheet music, the fingers move on their own. But what if that melody is out of tune? What if it no longer fits the new life you want to create? You try to change the sound, but the fingers insist on old chords. Repetition became identity, and identity over time becomes a prison. There was a time I tried to change a small habit. Stop falling asleep with my phone in my hand. Sounds simple, right? But the moment I decided to leave it outside the room, my whole body screamed. Anxiety, restlessness, a strange sense of emptiness. It felt like I was betraying something inside me. That something was the old program defending itself from an update. Here's the curious part. The body doesn't care if a habit is good or bad. It wants what's familiar, and familiar often means repetition. That's why you promised to change on Monday, but Sunday night you already feel the old resistance. I'll start tomorrow. But when tomorrow arrives, it carries the same code as yesterday, an invisible, silent loop. This loop is fed by a body that learned to anticipate emotions before the mind reflects. It feels boredom and asks for dopamine. It feels fear and shrinks. It feels rejection and raises the shield. All of this happens in milliseconds. The conscious mind tries to intervene, but it's too late. The body has already delivered the verdict. Continue exactly as you are. It's like trying to change a movie script, but the lead actor refuses to leave the stage. He knows every line by heart, every reaction, every drama. The body became that actor, trained to react in the same way, every single day. That's why change isn't just about willpower. It's about interrupting the automatic rehearsal that's been running for years. Here's the trap. You blame your mind when, in fact, it's the body on autopilot. The you that wakes with good intentions is the same you that hours later returns to the predictable zone. It's as if there were two selves, one that dreams of freedom and another that clings to the bars of habit. Unfortunately, the second one usually wins. A classic example is the "I'll just watch one episode." Seen that movie? The body knows there's reward there. It knows pressing the remote triggers a familiar chemical cascade. So it lies to you, just today. But tomorrow, it repeats the ritual. Because to the body, that old behavior is safety, even if it steals your evolution. Don't be fooled. This isn't weak discipline. It's old programming, a script written by memories, traumas, rewards, and punishments. While that script commands, you can change cities, jobs, relationships, and still remain on the same frequency. Because the loop isn't outside, it's inside, hidden but active. It's like walking in circles inside an invisible maze. You move but don't advance. You try, but something sabotages you from behind. That something is a set of emotional habits your body memorized so well they became part of who you think you are. But what if you could rewrite this script? What if there were a way to stop rehearsing pain and start rehearsing freedom? That question leads to the next point. If the body is so addicted to feeling before thinking, how did it learn that? Where does this deep emotional programming come from? And most importantly, how can it be replaced? The second factor, the emotional rehearsal. Some wounds don't scream. They whisper. In the margins of everyday life, you barely remember what happened. But suddenly, when you hear a voice, read a message, receive a no, something inside tightens. It's not about the event itself. It's about the emotion it left behind. Emotional memory doesn't need images. It lives in the body, replaying scenes the mind has already forgotten. It's like an actor rehearsing the same role for so long they can't tell the character from their own soul. An old trauma, a sentence someone threw at you, a disapproving look in childhood. Microtraumas, moments that, alone, seem small. Together, they form an emotional script you repeat without noticing. Day after day, relationship after relationship. The cycle starts with a thought, small, fleeting. What if I'm not enough? That thought triggers an emotion, maybe sadness, maybe anger. The emotion releases chemicals in the body, creating a signature. That chemistry becomes addictive. The body starts craving more of it. And to feed it, you unconsciously think the same thought again and again, until it becomes identity. It's like someone who once felt rejected and spent the rest of their life creating situations that reaffirm it. They get involved with people who don't value them. They self-sabotage opportunities. They interpret silence as disinterest. All to confirm an old storyline: no one chooses me. Not because they want it, but because they learn to feel this way, and now need to feel it again. It's cruel but real. The body becomes dependent on negative emotions like an addict needs a dose. It doesn't matter if you want peace, love, recognition. If your body knows the opposite, that's what it will look for. Worse, it will distort reality to find it. It will attract, interpret, and sustain patterns just to feed the old program. You've seen someone surrounded by affection who insists no one loves them, right? Or someone with everything going well who still finds a reason to complain? They're masters of emotional reinterpretation because their bodies need that emotion as fuel. And just like people who need coffee to function, they need sadness, anger, or worry to feel at home. We usually think addiction only refers to substances, but the greatest addiction is emotional. Addiction to guilt, to scarcity, to control, to rejection. It's dangerous because it's invisible. It disguises itself as personality, as "that's just how I am." But underneath, it's only an old emotional rehearsal turned habit. Until it's noticed, it stays on stage, in silence. The repetition of these emotions isn't only psychological, it's physical. The body memorizes the chemistry of suffering, and like any muscle, the more it repeats, the stronger it gets, more automatic, harder to notice, until one day you feel sad, and don't know why. Because it wasn't an event. It was an internal repetition that flipped the switch on its own. That's why change requires more than positivity. It requires emotional detox, leaving the old role, stopping the rehearsals for scenes that should have left the stage long ago. This doesn't happen with empty slogans or forced affirmations. It happens with presence, with awareness, with the courage to watch triggers without reacting and rewrite the final act. A good start is this: when a strong emotion rises, pause, breathe. Ask, is this real or just familiar? If it's just familiar, observe. Don't fight, just observe. That's how new space opens, That's how the cycle begins to weaken. That's how freedom appears, and between an emotion and the response you choose. Reprogramming isn't erasing the past. It's changing what you rehearse every day. It's stopping the training of pain and beginning to rehearse neutrality, lightness, worthiness. You already know what it's like to live on alert. You already know what it's like to expect the worst, but what if now is the time to rehearse something completely different, something new, something your body doesn't know yet? To do that, you'll need to understand how this structure organizes itself. The loop isn't random, it has an architecture, a shape, and understanding that shape is the next step to break the cycle. The third factor, the architecture of the loop. Imagine you're trapped in a room. Instead of a door, there's only an arrow pointing to a button. Every time you feel discomfort, your finger goes straight to the button. Momentary relief, but without noticing, every click reinforces the addiction. This is the cycle of emotional escape. It isn't the pain that keeps you trapped, it's the automatic attempt to flee from it. Dr. K explains it masterfully. The problem isn't in the box, it's in the arrow. The box is the event, but the arrow, the reaction, decides whether it frees you or imprisons you. And that arrow almost always points to distraction. Felt anxiety, phone, felt emptiness, food, felt loneliness, endless scrolling. Pain isn't the loop. What binds you is the knot you tie trying to escape it. The loop is ingenious. It begins with subtle discomfort, boredom, restlessness, a poorly understood emotion. The immediate impulse is to seek something external, a click, a conversation, a stimulus. Then comes dopamine, the dose, the relief, and right after, guilt. The emptiness grows, and the body, it learns the only way to cope is to repeat it all again. It's like stepping into an emotional elevator. You press the button to go up, but it always takes you back to the same floor. The floor of frustration. The more you try to escape, the more conditioned you become. Because the brain learns, they want comfort. Let's repeat what we already know. The new is unknown, and the unknown, to the nervous system, is a threat. Visualize this cycle. Emotion, escape, relief, guilt, reinforcement, emotion. An almost perfect circle, almost hypnotic, a hamster running on an invisible wheel. The problem isn't feeling, it's reacting automatically. It's not noticing there's a space between feeling and acting, a space where the loop can be interrupted. It's subtle, it requires presence. That's why many people spend years trying to change their behaviors and stay stuck. Not because they fail to try, but because they keep trying. The same way, they try to control discomfort. But control isn't the same as healing, and fleeing isn't the same as transforming. The rational mind wants quick solutions. The body only wants what it already knows. Very simple example. That sudden urge to check your phone for no reason. You say it's boredom, but in truth it's the system asking for dopamine, reinforcement, confirmation. Each unlock is a tiny escape. But the boredom doesn't vanish. It returns, stronger. Because you didn't feed curiosity, you fed the impulse. Well-fed impulses become habits. The key is recognizing the exact moment the arrow appears. Before the click, before the escape, before the distraction. That tiny second is pure gold. That's where you can choose not to follow the impulse, not to press the button. Just breathe, just feel. Because when you feel without reacting, the loop begins to lose power, and you start to take the helm back. This doesn't mean you'll never seek comfort again. It means you'll choose consciously when and how. You'll step out of autopilot. You'll stop being hostage to the cycle. Once you see the architecture, you can rebuild it, not with walls of fear, but with windows of presence, spaces of pause, silences that heal. When the loop is seen clearly, it unravels. Not because it disappears, Matty, but because it loses its mystery. It stops being something that controls you and becomes something you observe. And what is observed is transformed. But this transformation demands courage. Courage to face discomfort without fleeing. Courage to let pain pass through you without running for cover. Which raises a necessary, uncomfortable question. Why is it so hard to simply not react? Why does the body resist change so much, even when it promises freedom? The answer may be where we least expect it, in the very biology of habit. The fourth factor, why the body resists change. Have you tried to change something in yourself and felt like a part of you was pulling you back? A subtle anxiety, an irritation without a name, a resistance that feels physical. That's not your imagination, it's the body. It has memory, and it learned to love the predictable, even when the predictable hurts, because predictable feels safe, at least to the body. Biology doesn't seek happiness, it seeks survival. And to the body, anything repeated for years equals, we survived this. It doesn't matter if it came with pain, fear, or guilt. We survived. Therefore, it's reliable. If you try to change the pattern, the alarm sounds, the body doesn't recognize the new as a solution, it recognizes it as a threat. That's why when you try waking earlier, eating differently, meditating, or breaking any old habit, you feel an almost inexplicable discomfort. The mind says, let's go, but the body says, not now. Lethargy, tension, sabotaging thoughts. That's the system trying to return to what it knows, because change is a small death, biologically speaking. I remember the first time I tried a new morning routine. Silence, meditation, no phone. It sounded simple, but in the first days my body screamed restlessness, sleepiness, the urge to grab the phone, early hunger. Something felt panicked inside, and it was. The body didn't understand the new script, it wanted the old one back. This is when many people quit, not for lack of strength, but for lack of understanding. They don't realize they're facing a biological structure that fights to keep everything as it is. That's not weakness, it's physiological resistance, silent yet powerful, because it comes from within, and it pretends to be you. Here's the intriguing twist. The discomfort you feel when changing often doesn't come from what you're doing, but from what you stopped repeating. It's withdrawal from the familiar. The body misses the usual emotions, the drama, the rush, the self-criticism. It's like someone who feels homesick for chaos because they learned to live inside it. And here's a raw truth. Your comfort zone isn't comfortable, it's just predictable. What you call my way might be a mere echo of what the body memorized, an emotional script written in times of scarcity, fear, or survival. But you're no longer that older version. The environment changed, the body it hasn't noticed yet. When the new begins to be practiced, the body goes into detox. And detox sometimes hurts. It starts eliminating old patterns with deep emotional roots. That's why change needs more than motivation. It needs gentle persistence. You must continue, even without desire. Maintain the new, even when the old calls. This isn't done with brute force, it's done with loving consistency. Like taming a wild horse, not with a whip, but with presence, showing day after day that the new is safe. That silence isn't a threat. That discomfort doesn't kill. That lightness can be the new normal. That peace doesn't have to be strange, it can become familiar too. Every time the body resists, remember, it isn't an enemy, it's afraid, it needs evidence. It needs to feel again and again that all is well, that growth isn't dangerous, that the pain has passed, and that is only learned in practice. Repeating with presence, until one day, the new also becomes memory. Before that happens, there's a wall to cross, an invisible boundary between what you want and what you can access. That wall isn't external, it's in the mind, the realm of analysis, control, and logic, which is exactly our next point. The fifth factor, breaking the analytical wall. There's a point in the journey where fear doesn't hold you back. Nor the past, nor pain, it's analysis. The mind starts rationalizing, weighing, measuring, comparing. You want to change, but you ask too many questions. Will it work? Am I ready? What if it fails? That excess of questions is the wall. What stops you isn't what you feel, it's what you keep thinking. The analytical mind is brilliant, but when it's in charge, it needs guarantees. It wants total control before the next step. The quantum path, the path of true transformation, doesn't deal in certainty. It deals in faith, frequency, surrender. To enter it, you must quiet logic, slow thought, access the space where the new can enter. That space lies between brainwaves, literally. When you're in high beta, the normal alert state, the brain runs fast, agitated, overthinking. In deep meditation, the waves slow down. Alpha, theta. In that state, you cross the border. The conscious mind relaxes, and the subconscious opens. That's why ancient masters meditated, not just for peace, but to access the field where the program can be rewritten. They intuitively understood that truth doesn't reveal itself in noise. It's in silence that the soul speaks, and it's in silence that the hidden software can finally be observed and edited, not by force, by frequency. Try a simple exercise. Close your eyes, breathe deeply. Notice the impulse to move, fingers twitch, itch arises. The mind invents reasons to open your eyes. Just notice, don't react, just observe. That tiny interval is the slit between the old and the new. It's where the loop begins to lose its power. The analytical wall trembles before presence. Presence doesn't think, it feels, doesn't judge, it observes. And when you train it, even for minutes a day, a new map emerges. An inner path where the body doesn't command and the mind doesn't sabotage. A space where you simply are. And that being changes everything around you. When you break the analytical wall, you don't lose control, you gain access to new ideas, new answers, new frequencies. Creativity blooms, intuition speaks. Life begins to flow from the inside out. You realize great changes rarely come from logic. They come from surrender. And surrender is the language the universe understands. How many times have you felt an inner calling, and the mind answered with fear? What if I fail? What if I regret it? Those questions seem rational, but they're defenses. The rational mind wants to keep what exists, even if it's small, even if it hurts, because the known is easy to categorize. The new is too vast to control. When you start seeing thoughts like clouds, passing, not you, something shifts. You don't need to fight them, nor believe them, just let them pass. Like watching the sky without trying to hold the wind. Observing without reacting is where the break begins. It's how the wall becomes a bridge. Meditation isn't a spiritual luxury. It's inner engineering, technology of the soul. A silent lab where you uninstall old patterns and install possibilities. It's the moment you leave survival mode and enter creation mode. But to do that, you must first slow down and breathe. Breathe as if you were being reborn. Cross that wall, and something magical happens. You realize you no longer need to wait for the world to change, because the power isn't outside, it's within. And that quiet, almost forgotten power can turn your reality inside out. For that, you need a leap out of logic and into the field. Which brings us to that leap, a quantum flip, where the external stops being the cause and becomes the effect, where you stop reacting and start creating. The sixth factor, the quantum flip. You were taught to wait for success to feel capable, wait for love to feel worthy, wait for recognition to finally believe in yourself. It seems safe, but it's a prison. The external becomes the judge, and you, the defendant. Everything depends on what's outside. Meanwhile, life slips through your fingers, waiting for permission to bloom. That's the Newtonian paradigm, cause and effect. Something happens and then you feel. In the quantum world, the order reverses. You feel, and then something happens. In the invisible field, it isn't the fact that creates emotion. Emotion generates the vibrational field. And that field shapes reality, not by magic, by coherence, by frequency. Imagine this. Instead of waiting to feel prosperous after earning money, you generate the feeling of prosperity now. The body doesn't distinguish real from vividly rehearsed. It responds to your internal state. The more you repeat that vibration, the more the universe responds. You stop attracting what you want and start attracting what you are. It's like changing radio stations. The old frequency played scarcity, doubt, guilt. You dance to its rhythm. When you change the inner soundtrack, when you start feeling gratitude, freedom, joy without reason, the music changes. People, opportunities, and signs change with it. Not because the world changed, because you tuned differently. A real example. There was a time when, before recording anything, I felt insecure. I waited for someone to validate me, to say, "It's good." Then I realized that was the old me seeking external approval. When I shifted my inner vibration, feeling as if I already had value before any result, everything flowed. The words, the audience, the fruit. Here's the flip. Don't wait to feel complete after you achieve. Feel complete now, and achievements arrive as a reflection. That doesn't mean denial, pretending you're fine. It means intentionally choosing the inner state you want to cultivate. Rehearsing the emotion internally of what you want to experience externally. The field answers emotion, not empty intention. The quantum world is like a mirror with delay. You vibrate something today. The reflection appears tomorrow. If you change frequency halfway, the reflection changes too. That's why so many say, "Nothing works for me." They change states with every doubt. They start with faith and soon return to fear. They create with intention and cancel with anxiety. This leap requires trust. Trust is action without evidence. You plant without seeing the sprout. You water even without flowers. You vibrate even without immediate returns. Because you know the field doesn't fail. It responds to what's consistent. Consistency comes from within, from a state so rooted it no longer needs proof. The beauty is you stop struggling, stop chasing. You begin to attract naturally. Success becomes a consequence. Love becomes a reflection. Abundance becomes an extension of what you already feel. That kind of life isn't a conquest. It's a remembering of who you've always been. Before fear, before trauma, before programming. To live in this state, you must train. Knowing isn't enough, you must practice. Rehearse the new self, educate the body, tame impulses, repeat until the new becomes natural. For that, there's a process like training a wild animal. A process requiring gentle discipline, conscious repetition, and loving firmness. Which leads us to the next step, how to train the body to obey the new mind, until mind and body vibrate together toward your new destiny. The seventh factor, training the animal. The body isn't a villain, but it isn't the master either. It's an animal. Like any animal, it needs training. It must understand who's in charge. By default, it obeys habit, impulse, emotional addiction. If no one interrupts it, it will continue, even if it means repeating chaos. Changing course takes more than good intentions. It takes training, command, presence. Joe Dispenza says, "Sit the body down like a wild horse." Exactly. At first, it resists, thrashes, wants to return to the predictable zone. But if you remain, it learns. The body is trainable. It responds to repetition, to gentle firmness, not to shouting, but to the steady gaze of someone who won't negotiate with the old identity. I remember deciding to stop compulsively checking my phone. At first, it felt impossible. A moment of silence and my finger sought the screen, so I created a code. Every time I felt the impulse, I whispered, "Not yet." Then I breathed. The impulse came. I answered with firmness again and again, until one day, the body didn't ask anymore. That's the secret. Will greater than the program. Will is the seed of the new identity, but it needs daily action to bloom. The body must see and feel that there's a new master. That master is your conscious self. It decides when to stand, speak, stop. The more you practice it, the stronger it becomes. At first, the body protests, says it's tired, reminds you of old rewards, tries to bargain with excuses. If you observe, you'll notice all those voices come from the same place, the automatic programming, the old script that doesn't want to die because it knows if you take command, its reign ends. It's training the body isn't punishment, it's liberation. Showing it you can live without that food, that distraction, that emotion, that you can wake early, breathe before responding, be kind even in anger. All of this is training. Every training starts uncomfortable. Over time it becomes power, posture, peace. Picture a dog that jumps every time the doorbell rings. If no one corrects it, it continues. With patience, if you teach it to stay calm, it learns. The body is that dog. It jumps at anxiety, barks at fear, runs at pain. But It can be trained to wait, breathe, obey. Here's a crucial subtlety. Training isn't just physical, it's chemical. When you say no to the old impulse, the body enters withdrawal. The old chemistry, dopamine, adrenaline, cortisol, begins to dry up. It hurts, not like physical pain, but as deep restlessness. This is where many quit, but it's where the miracle begins. Every no to the old self is a yes to the new. Every contained impulse is cellular reprogramming. Every conscious choice is a rewrite of destiny. The body realizes it's safe in the new. It no longer needs the automatic. Then it surrenders. From rebellious servant to ally, from invisible enemy to creation partner. This process isn't fast, nor linear, but it's real. The more you practice, the more you notice. It isn't about controlling the body, it's integrating it, teaching it to dance to the new field's rhythm, to vibrate at the same frequency as your intention. That changes everything. As the body yields, a new skill arises, observing what used to trigger reactions and not reacting. A rare, silent, powerful state. The state of neutrality. The eighth factor, the neutral state. There's a state beyond pain and beyond pleasure, a place where the mind doesn't judge, the body doesn't react, and the heart simply observes. This isn't passivity, it's presence, neutrality, the 0 point of consciousness. There, you aren't trying to flee discomfort or chasing reward, you simply are. And in that being, true freedom is born. Dr. K teaches that the opposite of pain isn't pleasure, it's neutrality. Pleasure is often another escape. You feel discomfort and rush to eat, scroll, seek distraction. In neutrality, you realize you don't need to flee. You realize you can feel without reacting, be without dramatizing. Imagine a storm forming. The sky darkens, the wind rises, the rain falls, the mind wants to run, the body wants to hide. Yet there's a point at the very center where all is calm, the eye of the hurricane. That's the neutral state. You're there, in the center, feeling what happens and without getting lost in reaction, observing everything, without becoming any of it. Neutrality isn't apathy, nor indifference, it's vibrational maturity. A trigger appears and you choose not to pull it. The old emotion rises and you simply breathe. You don't feed it, flee from it, or fight it. You allow it. In allowing, something magical happens. The emotion dissolves. What isn't resisted doesn't persist. A powerful exercise. When you notice an impulse, a desire to lash out, to escape, to self-sabotage, pause. Breathe deeply. Say inwardly, "This is just a program." Then observe. The impulse will try to dominate. If you remain, it weakens. What remains is silence. A silence so deep it feels like touching another dimension. Neutrality is like the sky. Emotions are clouds. They come, go, change shape, darken, brighten. But the sky remains untouched. You are the sky. You always were. You forgot because you confused yourself with the clouds. Accessing the inner space, the observer state, you begin to remember who you are. In that state, reality shifts. You exit reaction modes and enter creation mode. You don't react to criticism, you choose what it means. You don't react to fear, you walk with it beside you, not in command. You feel everything, but respond only to what you want to nurture. That is freedom, real freedom, independent of anyone or anything. Note, the state isn't permanent at first. It comes in flashes, brief moments, a minute here, two there. That's enough. Each second in neutrality is a second outside the loop, a second where the program loses strength and you gain sovereignty. Slowly, the body learns it doesn't need to react to everything. That changes your entire frequency. Here's the deepest point. Freedom begins when you no longer need to escape. When pain can exist and you don't need to erase it. When emptiness appears and you don't rush to fill it. When silence arrives and you don't cover it with noise. That's true transcendence, not fleeing, not denying, not fighting, just being. The neutral state isn't the end, it's the foundation. The fertile soil where the new can be planted. Now that you're no longer bound to what was, you can finally choose what to be. Which leads us to the last stage, consciously creating the new circuit. The last factor, the new circuit. There comes a moment when it's no longer about resisting the old, but rehearsing the new. The body is no longer at war. The mind is quieter. The field, receptive. Now the phase of conscious creation begins. You plant, repeat, feel before you see. Repeating with intention, you begin to install a new circuit, a new vibrational identity. Here's the final key. You can't predict your future, but you can practice it. It isn't about guessing, it's about frequency. When you rehearse your new self every day, something changes inside. The body starts recognizing this new state as familiar. The mind starts expecting the unexpected, and the field begins to respond. It's like practicing an instrument. At first it's awkward, forced. Over time the fingers flow, the sound comes, the music appears. So it is with the new you. At first, feeling confident without reasons seems fake. Feeling grateful without anything new seems crazy. The more you practice, the more it becomes part of you. Reality, faithful to your vibration, reflects it. Say you want to be light, present, free. Ask, how does that person move, speak, respond to the unexpected? Then practice. Act if you must, but practice sincerely. Feel it in your body. Breathe like them. Think like them. The brain learns by repetition, but the field responds to embodied emotion. This practice doesn't have to be long. It must be consistent. 5 minutes a day can do it. Close your eyes and rehearse your new self. Feel life the way they feel it. Smile. Breathe. Give thanks. Walk as if you had already received. Live as if it were already manifesting. Without noticing, you clear residues of the old and install the wiring of the new. Reprogramming is like carving a path through brush. At first there's resistance, branches, obstacles. Each step opens the way. Each repetition strengthens it. Over time, the new path becomes a road, and the old trail, covered by time, disappears. The brain prunes what isn't used, it strengthens what you practice. A reminder, practice isn't control. It isn't forcing the universe to obey. It's aligning yourself with the reality you want to experience, becoming compatible with what you desire. You don't attract what you ask for. You attract what you vibrate. Vibration comes from your inner state, from the circuit you feed every single day. This new circuit is more than a habit. It's a being, a new version of you that gradually replaces autopilot. It starts making different decisions, seeing opportunities you used to miss, attracting conversations, synchronicities, ideas, not by magic, by vibrational coherence. You no longer need to fight the old, just stop feeding it and start rehearsing the new, with presence, with firmness, with gentleness. Deep transformation doesn't shout, it installs itself in silence, a silence that echoes into the field and changes everything around it, like a seed planted in the dark that one day breaks the soil and blooms. And maybe now the most important question isn't, when will things change, but rather, who are you training yourself to become today? Now that you've seen all this, the question is no longer, am I trapped in an invisible loop? But which patterns have I been feeding without noticing? Which reactions repeat in your body, even when your mind wants to move forward? Which sensations of pain, rejection, or scarcity feel like they're yours, but in truth, were programmed long ago? The loop only continues because you feed it with unobserved emotion. The good news is, starting today you can stop, you can breathe, you can observe, and choose differently. Tell me in the comments, which part of this video awakened you the most? Which emotion do you notice you're addicted to repeating? And what's the first action you'll practice to build your new circuit? Your share might be the spark of freedom for someone else who's stuck, waiting for a word like yours and to wake up. If this video lit something inside you, like, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because here, we don't just talk about quantum spirituality, we teach how to live outside the loop and create, with presence, a new reality. See you in the next video, my friend. Until then, rehearsing the new in silence is already creating.